Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. All right, so I have insomnia, but I've never slept better. And what's changed? Just a pillow. It's had such a positive impact on my life. And, of course, I'm talking about MyPillow. I fall asleep faster, I stay asleep longer, and now you can, too. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 800-919-6090. Use the promo code Hannity, and Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, has the special 4-pack. Now, you get 40% off 2 MyPillow Premiums and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Now, MyPillow is made here in the USA, has a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, and a 10-year warranty. Go to MyPillow.com right now or call 800-919-6090, promo code Hannity, to get Mike Lindell's special 4-pack offer. You get 2 MyPillow premium pillows and 2 Go Anywhere pillows for 40% off. And that means once those pillows arrive, you start getting the kind of peaceful and restful and comfortable and deep healing and recuperative sleep that you've been craving and you certainly deserve. MyPillow.com, promo code Hannity. You will love this pillow.
Coming this March 17th, Dublin's very own talk show leprechaun, Sean Hannity.
Top of the morning to ya. This is your right-wing, ultra-conservative leprechaun, Sean Hannity. Let's go to the phones now and to Bruno. Hello, Bruno.
Yeah, Sean, you know what I think? I think you're nothing but a little low-down, no-good, self-righteous little son of a bitch.
Hey, now watch your language there on the Sean Hannity show, Bruno. Now I'm going to have to Hannitize ya with me lucky shillelagh. See you there, Bruno. I turned you into a jackass, like you weren't one already. Who's next on the Sean Hannity show? Hello?
Hey, Sean, I'm a liberal Democrat, and I think you and Rush Limbaugh are a couple of right-wing, wife-beating, egomaniacal, Republican, vomit-spouting, bombastic, warmongering, heinous, antifreeze drinking.
Right there. Well, let me tell you what I think. I think I'm going to have to Hannitize ya.
Oh, what am I saying? I think you and Rush Limbaugh are great. I love you.
Well, that's what we like to hear. Peace and love on the Sean Hannity show. Who's next? That's Jimbo incoming.
Hey,
What?
Sean.
What?
Hey.
What?
Look, listen, I got my Confederate flag in the back of my pickup.
You know what, Jimbo? You're nothing but a redneck loser for a lost cause. Who's next?
It's stimulating conversation with Dublin's very own conservative leprechaun, Sean Hannity. Call and be Hannitized.
Top of the morning to ya, you coward.
Sean Hannity.
Me laddies, happy St. Patty's Day. We be drinking a bit heavy on the program today. Might be a little incoherent. All right, that's pretty bad, right, Linda? That was really bad.
I think anyone who's drinking already should call us now at 800-941-SEAN.
Yeah. Well, what nobody knows about New York City on St. Patty's Day, they always have this big, huge parade, St. Patrick's Day parade, and it's been under controversy. Should gays and lesbians be marching? And, I think Boston was dealing with that again this year, not so much in New York. And it's the craziest thing you've ever seen. Everybody's drinking green beer. You see people throwing up in the streets, green beer. It is the single worst day to ever go to New York City, period, end of sentence. Instinctively, I knew this as a kid. My mother took us once, and I was complaining so much that I was hungry. She said, fine, we're going home. And I felt terrible. And then I got home, and I'm like, this is great. Thank God I'm not out there in the freezing cold again. Anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day, and everybody's Irish today on the program, and we got a lot to get to. All right, so in Germany, we had Chancellor Merkel and the president having this big joint press conference together, meeting together today, and we're going to get to that. There are some security issues that are emerging. We've now found out. Remember this guy that jumped the fence the other day, was on the White House grounds for 15 minutes, maybe 20, before he got caught, according to some sources. Then a laptop was stolen, literally ripped off, that had all of the floor plans to Trump Tower. This is a huge breach in protocol. Pete Hoekstra wrote a very fascinating column today. Can Americans trust their spies? I can answer it from my perspective. I think you can trust most people. Just like you have one bad cop doesn't make every cop bad. You have one bad, doctor doesn't mean every doctor is bad. One bad talk show host doesn't make every talk show host horrible. On the minds of liberals, it's probably true. They hate them all. I hate broad sweeping generalizations like that. Also, we're really psyched because Camille Paglia is going to be on the program. Everyone says Paglia. I've made that mistake myself. Fascinating woman. I mean, you talk about an iconoclastic, free-thinking woman that just debunks the myth of feminism and what it has evolved into today and the attacks on masculinity. She is a prolific writer, amazing thinker, and so we're honored to have her on the program. Let me start, though. I got to set the table. I cannot tell you the degree to which I am frustrated with Republicans, that what the damage that they are doing and have done to themselves is incalculable. It is so stupid what they have done here with health care. For 8 long years, it's been about repeal and replace. 8 years. Now, I told you we are going to hold all of these politicians, every one of them, accountable. This is literally like the one big chance we have to stop this precipitous decline in the country and create an opportunity society, a free society, if you believe like I do, that every man, woman, and child's created by God and every single person born has talents, and with a little bit of sun and water and a little food, these munchkins grow up with incredible talent. The word education comes from the Latin to bring forth from within. We could have the American dream. Wealth creation is not a zero-sum game. There's not a limited amount of wealth that can be created in America. So here we have a chance to reverse things. Here you have a president with endless energy. I mean, a president that is a man of action, a president that wants to keep promises, which is, the things I would tell you about Donald Trump, knowing him over the years. By the way, he's not going to be perfect. He's going to make mistakes. When he does, we'll tell you. But he moves at the speed of light. He makes decisions quickly, cuts through all this bureaucratic crap. His budget shows in so many different ways that he wants to cut the size and scope and depth of government intruding into our lives, getting rid of these burdensome regulations, these ridiculously high taxes. In the industrialized world, we have the highest tax rate for corporations. It's insane. And we can lower that rate, bring in repatriated money for multinational corporations that park it overseas. It'll incentivize them to build factories and manufacturing centers. And those forgotten American men and women, which is what I think this election was about, can get their jobs back and buy their homes again, lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, and begin to rebuild their lives without government being such a big hindrance. It's not really hard to be a conservative. What do you want? All right, your government to keep your country safe and secure. He's trying to do that. And then you want an American economy that is thriving and growing, and there's no end to the amount of wealth and growth and prosperity and opportunity that you can build. There is a better way than what we have gone through the last 8 years. And that's why I believe he got elected. The guy that nobody in the media thought would win, the guy that they lie about all the time, the media that colluded with Hillary, the media that lies about him daily, the conspiracy theories an hour that are thrown out there about Donald Trump in advance with no compunctions whatsoever, period, end of sentence. So the Republicans, after 8 long years, you would think, and I know they had 9 plans. I knew there were 9. But you would think at some point that knowing on November 9th that this was going to happen, that they could have gotten everybody in a room. And that means even these great intellectual think tanks within conservatism, the Libertarian Cato Institute, that's where Goodman and Musgrave wrote the book Patient Power about healthcare savings accounts, or Heritage Action. The Heritage Foundation played a pivotal role in Ronald Reagan's successful agenda. You've got some really smart people there. You got smart people in the Club for Growth, Steve Forbes' ideas, and guys like Steve Forbes and others that understand economic theory that becomes reality. It's not just intellectual plasma that means nothing. All these groups could have assisted. Americans for Prosperity, another one. Get them in a room. find out their great ideas. Bring in Dr. Umber, who I talk about at Atlas MD in Wichita. He's been able to duplicate his cooperative system around the country and creating a model that is cost-effective for every patient, offers concierge care for $50 a month. You couple that with catastrophic insurance, and you basically have everything covered, and you have an available doctor for you 24 hours a day. Pharmaceuticals at a 95% discount. There's so many new, innovative, creative paradigms that can be made, and we don't do it. So that is, to me, very frustrating. Now, I actually blame the House and Senate, and listen, they have obstacles. I know. You got some liberal members. You got, 23, 24 Republican congressmen that are in districts that Hillary Clinton won. Okay, they've got their concerns. You know, their main concern, though, should not be, I'm worried I might not get elected. Who cares? What's the worst that can happen? You're not being called congressman or senator anymore? Really, that's my problem? Are you there to be a public servant, or are you there to advance your career at all costs? I mean, at some point, you got to decide, are you there to do what's best for the American people? And the hell with what the consequences are. Usually, good governance leads to greater politics. You'll win if you do good things, if you keep promises. So you got them, then you got people on the other side, and you've got the Freedom Caucus. They're not on board today. They're still not on board. And I'm still hearing from them that they're not even being contacted often by House leadership. And I hear from them that the person that reaches out to them the most is the president. So now the president, they sent him out there with the bill, and now the president basically has to do the cleanup job that he didn't necessarily need to do. And unfortunately, what I see evolving is, and I know that he met with the study group today, and that's more moderate conservative of a group, and not as conservative as the Freedom Caucus. Good members in there. We'll talk to some of them later in the program today. And what's not happening is they're only trying to get to the magic number. They're not trying to get the bill that is the best for the American people. And as is often the case, those with conservative thoughts and conservative ideology, this was more the case under John Boehner, they are kind of, well, if we can probably just peel a few of them away, then we'll have enough votes, and then we'll be able to pass the bill, whether or not it's the best bill that we could do for the American people. I understand the sausage-making analogy. I understand how making laws happens. I'm just saying, if we're going to create new paradigms, how about a paradigm where you don't write the contract first or get ahead of yourself or put the cart before the horse, and you end up building the consensus and building the bill first, and then you write up the contract. And they had it ass backwards from the get-go here. And that's what frustrates me. I'd rather not be spending my time on this program telling them how dumb they are. I'd rather them be successful and go do what I've been suggesting. And I'm not saying I have the answers to everything here. But if you bring these smart think tank people in, and you bring the House Freedom Caucus in, and you bring the more liberal moderates in, and you bring the study group in, and you bring in the senators that are going to matter, like Rand and Cotton and Rubio and Lee and Cruz and whatever, then you've got a chance that you can build the box that everybody can live within and make the best bill possible. And honestly, that should be the goal. Now, we'll get to that today. We also have these instances. We're going to compare Germany's migrant crime and how the crime has skyrocketed and how it would impact America if we made the same mistake as Germany did. We'll get to that. Camille Paglia is on the program today. Also, we have some members of the House. We'll hold them accountable today as part of our never-ending job to offer real conservative solutions and hold their feet to the fire.
Prices are for base buildings only. Do not include windows, doors, or accessories. Warning! Don't let your business get left behind in what is likely to be the biggest economic boom in recent history. If you need to build to grow your business, call General Steel today. Steel prices are expected to rise, but you can still lock in your price on a General Steel building if you call now. For example, a 40 by 60 foot building is still less than $25,000. Even an 80 by 150 foot building is under $99,000. Imagine 12,000 square feet for under $99,000. equipment. This building is designed for your needs, no wasted space. And you get the General's quality and 50-year structural warranty at a price you can afford. You can still save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction by calling General Steel today. As much as half. So don't let rising steel prices put your project out of reach and stop you from making your company great. Call now. 877-81-STEEL. It's not too late. Call 877-81-STEEL. That's 877-817-8335.
You know, if you add that to the rally he had in Nashville the other night, I mean, he was so in the zone. I mean, it's like watching a pitcher. He can't miss the corner. He can't not strike almost everybody out. He's just in his zone. Or, you know, watch a basketball player on a run that he's just. It doesn't matter where he's shooting from. He's gonna swish the ball. You know, one thing that the media is missing about Donald Trump that they don't know, he's really funny. I mean, if you watch these rallies that he has, now, number one, I'm really happy because a politician saying I'm going to keep my promises. All right, that's important to me. But if you watch him and when he takes the finger and all those liars back there, they're right, fake news, liars, fake, phony, they're all liars back there. And he just calls them out. If the media wasn't so sensitive to it, they don't know how to deal with it. In the interview he gives to Tucker Carlson the other day, it was funny. The president says, you know, and I had this discussion with him at one point during the campaign. That's what made it so hilarious when they were saying Sean Hannity said they need a purge the night before. He listened to Hannity and he fired 43 U.S. attorneys. I wasn't even talking about the attorneys. I was talking about the deep state, intelligence leakers, Obama holdovers, and career bureaucrats that are sabotaging him and releasing information that is illegal and a felony. Wasn't even talking about the U.S. attorneys. What do I know about these U.S. attorneys? Nothing. So it just, although Bill Clinton did it, nobody seemed to care then. It's just he's got these people's number. Then he goes to Tucker, you know, I got 80, 90, 100. I don't even know how many. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I don't really need the media. I can bypass them. I have my own newspaper. I can reach 100 million people. And this, you know, as every single thing that we pointed out, for example, that there's no evidence whatsoever on this Russia connection and with the Trump campaign. And for 6 months now, that's all you hear without a shred of evidence. Why should Hattis Gold, I just tweeted it out to him, why should the president talk to people that colluded with Hillary Clinton in the last campaign, that lie about him and propagate these phony conspiracies every day? He doesn't need to, ever. Why should he? All right, 25 till the top of the hour, 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. Well, the president did say this about health care. Then we're going to move on to the Merkel joint presser that they had. That was so funny. That was so funny. And, you know, oh, can you prove your wiretap? Can you prove it? Well, just ask the New York Times. They reported it. And, of course, they're never going to go after their own. There's like this little media cabal. And I've picked up on this more than anything else on social media, where all these inside the Beltway, liberal-leaning, leftist, groupthink media people, they all pat each other on the back. And what they do is they spend all day talking to each other. And they spend all day tweeting at each other. And they spend all day saying, isn't this great what I did? Yeah, it's great what you did. Isn't this great what I did? Isn't this great what you did? Isn't that great what I did? Did you just hear what the president said? We all agree it was horrible, right? It was wrong, right? And you know, besides Joe Concha over the hill, I mean, he's like an island unto himself, the poor guy. They just don't have the capacity, it seems, to be independent thinkers. And it's a really bizarre, almost cult-like environment and bubble in which they live in. Now, I can tell you more about it because I've been around this for a long time. There's a really big reason why I've never been to a White House Correspondents' Dinner in my entire life. Kellyanne, I was talking to her the other day, and she goes, well, you're coming to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And I said, no. She goes, well, why not? I said, number one, the president's not going to be there, and I've never been to one in my life. And she goes, you've got to be kidding. I said, no, I've never been to one. And she goes, how is that possible? I said, well, Fox tried to make me a bunch of times, but I always end up getting sick the day before. It's like magic, which isn't true. I've lied to Fox and said I don't feel good today. Meanwhile, I've taken maybe 3 sick days in 21 years. So they know I'm full of crap, and they just throw up their hands, and they just say, oh, forget it. You don't want to go that bad? We're not going to make you. Number one, you have to wear that stupid, penguin suit that they put you in, that tuxedo thing. The person that invented that should absolutely, who in their right mind would ever make a thing like that? I don't know. The most uncomfortable thing in the world. I'm a jeans, T-shirt, golf shirt, sweats, baseball hat person myself. And so I don't like getting dressed up in those clothes. The worst hour of my day in terms of fashion is the 1 hour on TV, because that's not how I look in real life. I never wear a tie. I hate ties. I despise ties. Anyway, so she would say, well, you never go there. And I'm like, because I don't like them. I just said, we have nothing in common. They're now caught up in this very bizarre whirlwind where they have been advancing lies, colluding with Hillary. They've gotten exposed by WikiLeaks. And now they sit there. Oh, my gosh, what did I was reading it just now. Whoa, what did the president say that they have it in common, that Obama wiretapped them? Oh, where's the evidence? Well, meanwhile, many of these people themselves reported it. Many of these people themselves ran with it. So maybe Donald Trump, all he needs to say is, whoopsie daisy, maybe we need to apologize for getting that wrong. But don't worry, if they put it on A1, the original story, if they do a correction, it's going to be on A50. I've been a victim of this my entire career. I'm so used to it. I'm impervious to it. I don't care. It's like water off a duck's back. Nothing penetrates. And I tried to get it. I got attacked yesterday, and I'm like, it's just not true. I mean, I'm just rolling my eyes, kind of laughing and saying, keep trying, guys. You didn't get me yet. 21 and a half years at Fox, 30 years in radio, and you haven't brought me down yet. But their goal is to do that. I mean, there is a chilling effect that nobody talks about as it relates to being a conservative in media. I don't know that liberals are monitored the way, say, I am, or Levin is, or Rush is, or any other talk show, Laura Ingraham is. I just don't see it. I don't see, for example, there are people that I know, some strange people in New Mexico, it just so happens, in their underwear. And their entire job is to monitor 4 hours of Hannity every day. Now, what a horrible existence that must be for that individual. And I don't care how much you're getting paid or whether George Soros is even contributing or not. Could you imagine? And their hope and their prayer is that I say one thing, do one thing, that they can just take me out and chop the legs out from under me. I've known this for years. I'm like, you become immune to that, too. And then they headlines are just so obscene and absurd and illogical and just absolutely false. And that's why when I see the president, it's so funny to watch him point his face, those people in the back, and the crowd goes nuts. And the crowd, CNN sucks. I mean, I've been to the moments where that's broken out spontaneously, and it's just so alive. Because what the media hasn't quite figured out yet is the American people are now hip to their bull. They're hip to their lies. They're hip to their distortion. They're hip to their misleading articles. They're hip to their conspiracy theories now, and it's just not going to work. Anyway, so I thought that was a pretty funny moment. And so there was a little bit of progress on the health care bill today in the Oval Office. And the president this morning met with congressional leaders and may have made some progress negotiating Obamacare in the replacement bill that he says could be a win-win. And this is from the Republican Study Group. And so here's what the president said.
I was in Tennessee. I was just telling the folks. And half of the state has no insurance company. And the other half is going to lose the insurance company. The people don't know what to do. It's a disaster. Obamacare's dead. Nothing to do with these people. Nothing to do with me. It's on respirator, and it's just about ready to implode. Now, we could wait for 6 months or a year and let it happen, It's not the right thing to do for the people. This is a great plan. This is going to be fantastic. You're going to have bidding at the one level by insurance companies. And remember this. Those lines are going to come out. You're going to have bidding by insurance companies like you've never seen before. Plans are going to come out like nobody's ever seen before. Plans that nobody's even thought of now are going to be devised by insurance companies to take care of people. And we're going to take care of people at all levels. So I just want to let the world know I am 100% in favor.
I'm 100. All right, so they're making progress. I think there's still a lot of work to be done because I talked to members of the Freedom Caucus, some 40 strong. I know the president announced from the Oval Office that some congressional leaders, some study group guys are agreeing to give states the option to impose work requirements on Medicaid recipients. By the way, that was a Freedom Caucus idea. That's where it originated from. And to block grant Medicaid, that's also a Freedom Caucus idea. And GOP leaders are using the Republican Study Committee endorsement and the words of the president to build momentum for the measure. Steve Scalise, who had come on this program, earlier in the week, or was it last week, Linda? I forget. The House Majority Whip, and he said that he did have the votes, but they didn't have the votes. You know, at one point, it was Paul Ryan saying it was going to be a binary take it or leave it deal for the Republicans. Now he has agreed to negotiate with these groups. That's all a good thing. That's all what I've said they needed to do from the beginning. In addition, the Medicaid agreement with the study group and the White House and some House leaders, they're also eyeing increasing the tax credits in the bill, some that could bring the more moderates on board, but that's going to alienate the conservatives. Again, I wish this was all done ahead of time. That would have been the more logical way to do it. Now, I want to, so the president goes out with Angela Merkel today. I have a study that came out, and Gatestone Institute, and it's pretty interesting because the actual number of crimes in Germany committed by migrants in 2015 might have exceeded 400,000. The report did include the crime data from certain areas, some of the more popular state areas in Germany, and also the state with the areas with the largest number of migrants. And for years, the policy has been to leave the German population in the dark about actual crime statistics. And anyway, you got violence now soaring, as a headline on Breitbart. In 2 German states, authorities there are expressing concern over official figures showing a huge rise in migrant crime, with the number of violent attacks in 2016 as having doubled. Now, sometimes in life, if you're really smart, if you see somebody's making a really dumb mistake, and you see Germany's making a really dumb mistake, and Europe is making a really dumb mistake, and we've talked about the clash of cultures and people that live under Sharia law, the most oppressive, centuries-old insanity that they are trying to impose on everybody. Those that believe in Sharia, women can't drive, women dress a certain way, gays and lesbians get thrown off roofs. I mean, it's insanity. It's evil in our time. I mean, and that's why Hillary taking the money from all those countries that practice Sharia, the fact that didn't tell women and women voters and women's rights activists and gay and lesbian activists, well, maybe you disagree with conservatives on gay marriage. Who gives a rip? Nobody cares what you're doing in the privacy of your own room. Nobody I know cares what anybody does in the privacy of their bedroom. I don't know a single person. Linda, does anybody care what you do? No. It doesn't matter. It's nobody's business. Thanks for shaking your head. That works really good on radio.
I think people are very interested in what I'm doing, actually.
I don't. Maybe they are. If they are, they're weirdos. But putting that aside for a minute. So they've got now refugees entered into the crime scene in the last year in Germany. The rise of violence by asylum seekers is astronomical. Now, the release of figures revealed a 95.5% spike in the number of physical attacks carried out by asylum seekers and migrants. That's a 60% increase. Everybody keeps saying, well, there's no such thing as a no-go zone in France. Yeah, there is. How do you reconcile somebody that comes from a country that believes that women can't drive a car, can't leave the country without a male an adult male's permission, are told to dress a certain way. They can't leave their house unless they have a male relative with them. They have morality police. If a couple likes each other and they're holding their hands in a town square, they're likely to get beaten in public and flogged, or a country that throws gays and lesbians off roofs or just hangs them, and a country that persecutes Christians and Jews. How can you take money from a country like this? How, if somebody grows up in that society under that culture, which is the antithesis of every single human right belief we have as a culture, how do we reconcile those differences that are so at odds with our simple, most basic, most fundamental constitutional beliefs and freedom for everybody? And how is it possible? I mean, we talk about vetting a lot. And I think that the president's executive order on vetting, I think Jay Sekulow is a smart lawyer. He thinks, we're going to have the same result from the Ninth Circuit. Then it'll go to the Supreme Court. He's predicting an 8-0 typical beatdown of the Ninth Circuit. But how, if we're going to vet anybody, and you come from a country that has these backwards beliefs as a practice of the culture that you grew up in, how do you reconcile or how do you vet somebody's mind and heart? That's why I've never been a big supporter of hate crimes legislation. How do you possibly know what's in somebody's mind, head, or thought as they do it? You punish them for the crime they committed. George W. Bush, remember the James Byrd ad in 2000? He didn't support hate crimes legislation for these animals that dragged this innocent man to his death. It was disgusting. It was despicable. It was evil. But George Bush supported the death penalty for the guy. So who cares? The guy's dead. He's done. He's finished. He's going where he belongs, straight to hell. I mean, the idea that, he didn't support the hate crimes, but he supported the death penalty for that guy? For the people responsible for that? Anyway, so you've got migrants committing disproportionately high crime in Germany. You've got this cultural divide. I don't think you can read people's minds and hearts when it comes to vetting them. And I also think that ISIS, as evil as they are, radical Islamic groups, as evil as they are, they're not stupid. And they're going to train people to in what they should say and shouldn't say if they're being interviewed or vetted. And they're going to lie. And then successfully infiltrate the refugee population. And then risk, what's the Islamization, if you will, of Europe will come here if we don't make that decision now on how we want to bring people into this country. And whether you share our values, whether you want to assimilate, whether you want the better life or you want to indoctrinate us into your theocracy. Simple stuff here.
Let me start with the president's tweets yesterday. This idea that maybe President Obama ordered an illegal wiretap of his offices. If something like that happened, would this be something you would be aware of?
I would certainly hope so. I can say, obviously I can't speak officially anymore, but I will say that for the part of the national security apparatus that I oversaw as DNI, there was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign. I can't speak for other Title III authorized entities in the government or a state or local entity.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if the FBI, for instance, had a FISA court order of some sort for a surveillance, would that be information you would know or not know?
Yes.
You would be told this.
I would know that.
If there was a FISA court order on something like this.
Something like this, absolutely.
And at this point, you can't confirm or deny whether that exists?
I can deny it.
There is no FISA court order?
Not to my knowledge.
Of anything at Trump Tower?
No.
He replied, and I quote here, "The story that we have millions or hundreds of millions of dossiers on people is completely false." The reason I'm asking the question is, having served on the committee now for a dozen years, I don't really know what a dossier is in this context. So what I wanted to see is if you could give me a yes or no answer to the question, does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not?
Not wittingly. There are cases where they could inadvertently, perhaps, collect, but not wittingly.
And here's something that I don't mean to freak you out with, but I think is true. Even our memories are not absolutely private in America. Any of us can be compelled, in appropriate circumstances, to say what we remember, what we saw. Even our communications with our spouses, with our clergy members, with our attorneys are not absolutely private in America. In appropriate circumstances, a judge can compel any one of us to testify in court about those very private communications. And there are really, really important constraints on law enforcement, as there should be. But the general principle is one we've always accepted in this country. There is no such thing as absolute privacy in America. There is no place in America outside of judicial reach. That's the bargain. And we made that bargain over 2 centuries ago to achieve 2 goals. To achieve the very, very important goal of privacy and to achieve the very important goal of security. Widespread default encryption changes that bargain. In my view, it shatters the bargain.
Are you saying that every American can be wiretapped against their will without any warrant at any point?
No, I'm saying they are.
You're saying you mean I have been wiretapped?
That's right.
Repeatedly?
Yes.
And by wiretapping, that means what? Recording my phone conversations, taking my emails, my texts?
Right, that's correct. And also storing it for mining. It's all done under Executive Order 12333, Section 23C.
Well, 12333 is the one that Obama put in place just 2 weeks before he left.
Well, he opened it up to all the other agencies in the intelligence community. Originally, it was just restricted. The only ones who had access were NSA, CIA, and FBI.
You're saying that every American listening to this program and every American in this country is being surveilled by our government without any type of warrant. Isn't that against unreasonable search and seizure, sir?
Yeah, it's a violation. This is why I left NSA in 2001. They're violating the First, Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments of the Constitution, as well as any number of laws.
All right, that last comment was from Bill Binney, 32-year veteran of the NSA, now has become a whistleblower, says wiretapping, metadata storage is at an all-time high. That means every single solitary American, every one of you listening to this program right now, he is making the claim and backing it up that it is being surveilled, it is being recorded, and it is being stored. Pretty scary. Anyway, Hour 2, Sean Hannity Show. The issue of privacy and surveillance, is it something that we've got to pay attention to? And then, of course, it gets to all of the questions of the deep state. A very, very fascinating article in the Wall Street Journal today by Pete Hoekstra. Now, Pete is the former House Intelligence Committee chairman. He wrote this op-ed. And, sir, welcome back to the program. It's an honor once again to have you. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, Sean. It's great to be with you.
Well, is Bill Binney right? Is every call, every text, every email being gathered and stored by the government in these big metadata facilities?
Well, clearly, I've been out of the intelligence community now for 5-6 years. And clearly the metadata, the record of phone calls made and received and those types of things is information that the government has had access to and has had access to for a long period of time. Actually recording those conversations, the content of those conversations, and making those available to our foreign intelligence agencies, that would be against the law. And unless they've started that recently, that was not something that they were doing prior to January of 2011, or at least they weren't doing it. At least Congress was not aware of it.
Let me ask you about the comment of the FBI director, James Comey, about no such thing as absolute privacy, because I think that was a fairly shocking statement that a lot of people didn't really pay a lot of attention to, but it got my attention, that's for sure.
Well, especially when he starts talking about no absolute guarantee of privacy, even in the absence of a court order. That is scary. And, this is why we really have to take a look at these intelligence communities and exactly where they're going. As I pointed out in my op-ed, so far they've let the American people down over the last 7 years. We've had 3 major breaches of cybersecurity with Bradley Manning, Ed Snowden, and now what happened with the CIA. The CIA has disappointed us. The intelligence community has disappointed us because they're agencies. They are spies that cannot keep secrets, and that's not a good place for anybody to be. The second thing that you've got here is what we saw what happened with General Flynn. They took some of our most sensitive information, the collection of American conversation. And these things are supposed to be deep sixed, and instead they transcribed these comments by General Flynn. They spread them across the agency, and then someone leaked them to the press. And this clearly was a targeted operation against the Trump administration. And so the intelligence committees on the Hill, they need to get really serious about these breakdowns in our intelligence community, because the intelligence community has lost the trust of the American people. They've got
I want to just say something, because what you're saying is, Peter Hoekstra, is so profound, and it's really scary. I want to also say something. It's also like when sometimes I'll hear broad, sweeping generalizations. I don't like when they say if you have one bad cop, people will generalize, well, all cops are like that. That is just factually inaccurate. My take on the brave men and women that work in intelligence, which in an evil world we certainly need, is that most of them are dedicated public servants, many of whom actually risk their lives in covert operations for our safety and security. But you're right, and you're asking, can Americans trust our spy agencies? When I hear something like that from Bill Binney or James Comey, and then I look at all these intelligence leaks, you're right, what they did with General Flynn was wrong on a lot of levels. Weren't they supposed to minimize that call? And isn't it usually past practice that they would put an American, wouldn't even put the individual's name on whatever report they ended up writing, and certainly not leak it for political purposes?
Oh, no, that's I met with the people who did this collection, and they were very clear when I met with them. They said, hey, Pete, if we ever, or Chairman, if we ever collect on Americans, the number one thing we do is, we deep six it. That information goes places where nobody should ever be able to find it. Now, if as we're reading this conversation, we find out that it may have some national security implications, we may distribute it, but we will never attach the person's name to it. And then we'll go, if we want to do more surveillance, we'll go get a court order to surveil that American specifically. But clearly what happened with Flynn is they collected on Flynn, they transcribed it, they didn't bury it. I don't know what they heard that had national security implications, but then they spread it across a number of agencies, which I'm not sure was lawful. And then what clearly was unlawful, someone decided to take that information and give it to the press. The press published it, and General Flynn was blindsided. And I think inappropriately and illegally. And that's what I have been saying when I say we need a purge of the deep state. In other words, if we have high-level intelligence officials that are leaking this type of sensitive data, that's a big problem. Secondly, when we find out through the reporting of John Solomon and Sarah Carter that, there was an investigation, there was a FISA, there were 2 separate warrants, and on an ancillary side of things, they looked into Donald Trump's server. That's what they've been reporting, and in fact found nothing, no issue of collusion, and everybody in the media is running rampant with a conspiracy theory. Is it odd to you that at this late date nobody will confirm whether or not anything untoward has been found? Yeah, it does kind of surprise me. Number one, I think, at least for the intelligence committees, they really, I think the leadership ought to really just step back and do their investigation. There's plenty of things for them to take a look at. They have to look at how the intelligence community has failed us by having these massive leaks. Why don't you have these controls in place that, you can find the Bradley Mannings or the Ed Snowdens before this ever occurs?
Such a good point. And by the way, am I wrong to say that, and I interviewed Julian Assange when at one point he exposed that we have no cybersecurity. At what point does it become America's problem and their responsibility that they have not set up a system that's safe and secure?
Oh, no, it's their responsibility right now. It's been their responsibility for the last 7 years.
Well said. I want to thank you. It's really, we're going to put this up on our website. Pete Hoekstra, Wall Street Journal piece you put out. Can Americans trust their spies? This is beyond anything I've ever seen, and it's only going. We're going to see more and more and more revelations on this as we move forward.
Still not sick of winning. Making America great again. Sean Hannity's on the air right now.
All right, as we continue, Sean Hannity Show, we have some breaking news. Mentioned earlier, the White House jumper apparently was on the White House grounds for 15 minutes before he got caught. 15 minutes before he got caught. How does this happen? I've been there a number of times since President Trump got into office. It's nearly impossible, from my perspective, for that to happen. Also, we have another story where a laptop computer that contained floor plans for Trump Tower and information about Hillary Clinton email and the investigation into that and other national security information was stolen from a Secret Service agent's vehicle in Brooklyn. Anyway, joining us now is Dan Bongino with us, former Secret Service officer himself, good friend of the program. Dan, what's going on here?
Yeah, Sean, these are really two bad stories. It's not been a banner week for the service, but here's what I'm getting from my contacts on story one, the fence jumper, which is really disturbing. I'm hearing that the gentleman Tran who jumped the fence jumped on the Treasury building, on the Treasury side, in the front of the Treasury building, and was actually on top of the fence. Didn't just jump right over, like actually celebrated his accomplishment for a moment. I'm not kidding. This is no room for humor or sarcasm. And was not detected. Jumps the fence, broke multiple alarms. There were alarms all over the place designed to sense various things. And the most disturbing part about what I'm hearing, Sean, is that after tripping multiple alarms and apparently being seen by a couple of people who didn't think anything of the incident, the alarms were actually cleared. Now, that's just a whole different level of incompetence. How that happened is beyond me. I'm familiar with the White House and how it works. You would have to go physically investigate and look at it and say, no, it's all good. And that's, if you're doing your job appropriately, that's really difficult to do if there is, in fact, an intruder, which obviously in this case there were. So we have, jumping the fence, and actually celebrating it for a moment, tripping multiple alarms, and it apparently was seen by a couple of personnel, I'm guessing on the uniform division side from what my contacts are telling me, and was never stopped. And I'm hearing the number was close to over 20 minutes, Sean, which I know the first time I met you was at the White House, so I know you've been there.
It's what you're describing, having been there, is almost impossible to me.
I mean, think about it. When I saw you were walking from the West Wing entrance to the Oval, and you probably, and that's, I don't know, maybe 50 yards, you probably ran into about 20 people, right? I mean, I ran into you. I was getting food.
Right.
So you know how difficult it is to do, to be on the grounds, and that's a 2-minute walk for what you did. To be on the grounds, from what I'm hearing, over 20 minutes, and to be seen by a couple of people and never removed, detained, arrested. Listen, I'm not trying to pile on here, but, I just find it odd, Sean, that when I did a Fox hit last weekend on this when it happened, and I said, listen, the president's not safe in the White House. I'm telling you from a former agent's experience, they're understaffed. They have big problems. I kid you not that I was laughed at by the talking heads. They said, "Oh, what does this guy know? He was only, I was only a Secret Service agent who was there." And I said,
"Is this a situation that deteriorated at the end of the Obama administration? Has it been a slow decline? Have they cut back on personnel? I mean,
Sean, for as much as I'd like to attribute this to Obama, given my stark ideological differences with him, this has been a slow decline since they were encompassed by the Department of Homeland Security. And the long story short of it is, they had management that we were in Treasury was easily controllable. We were a really big fish in a small pond over there. Now we're a small fish in an enormous pond in DHS. Management over there became aloof. They had no need to change anything because there was really no one overseeing them in any significant way unless something happened. So the line in the Secret Service became, yesterday's technology tomorrow. That was the joke we used to use because they never updated anything. They didn't update the weapons. I mean, Ron Kessler wrote about this in his book 4 years ago, how some of the weapons weren't sufficient, the alarms would break all the time, the technology's old, and you have sclerotic management from 20 and 30 years ago who just, they don't want to do anything differently. So when you do the same crap, you get the same crap results. I mean, they need a complete flushing at the top. And one thing, though, Sean, I know you know a lot of the rank-and-file men and women, the agents. They're not the problem. They're young. They're hungry. They know what they're doing. If you were to get them in your studio now and do that whole masking thing where you mask their voices, they'll tell you exactly what I'm telling you now. They all know exactly what's wrong. It's the management that won't do a damn thing.
They better get this fixed. And I said that for Obama, too. We've got to protect our president, period. End of sentence. But Dan Bongino, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. That's a scary report, just like the Pete Hoekstra report was pretty scary. Author Camille Paglia is going to check in with us. Speaking of the White House, we're going to check in with Omarosa, who will join us next, and then we're going to get to your phone calls today. Toll free, it's 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program, and much more.
He didn't pay any federal income tax
and hasn't paid taxes perhaps for the last 18 years.
The revelation that Donald Trump didn't pay income taxes.
Donald Trump is avoiding paying taxes. He won't pay taxes.
The fact that he hasn't paid taxes for almost 20 years.
He hasn't paid taxes in 20 years. Probably hasn't paid taxes in 18 years.
We know he didn't pay his taxes for 20 years.
He didn't pay income taxes for 18 years.
Donald Trump hasn't paid taxes in the past 20 years.
We're not even talking about the fact that Trump
didn't pay taxes. Now, the idea that Trump hasn't paid taxes in nearly 20 years. That means Trump hasn't paid taxes since the year his next wife was born.
I think that the biggest scandal is not that Donald Trump hasn't paid taxes for 15 years. It's that we've got a tax code that allows it.
The Indiana governor shrugged off the likelihood that Trump didn't pay federal income taxes for nearly 2 decades.
Donald Trump's tax returns have surfaced. Paid $38 million, looks like $38 million in taxes.
You made me stay up till 9 p.m. to tell me that Trump pays taxes.
All right, there you have it. More fake, phony, fraudulent news because, well, the 2005 return, Donald Trump hasn't paid taxes in 20 years. Well, yeah, he's paying a pretty big share, a hefty share, paying more by far. The Obamas paid what, from 2000 to 2015, $6.1 million. In 1 year, 2005, Donald Trump paid $38 million. And by the way, paid a higher rate than the Obamas, a higher rate than NBC Comcast, a higher rate than Bernie Sanders. He didn't deduct his underwear, used underwear, like the Clintons. It just, I don't know what else to say when this is the media being dead. It just is unbelievable. Anyway, we welcome back to the program somebody who's actually become a really good friend of mine that I really like and really admire. She's the only person that goes by one name for me anyway. Omarosa is back with us, the assistant to the president, director of communications for the Office of Public Liaison. You know what's amazing? So I play this montage, and all the media is saying for 20 years Donald Trump never paid a penny in taxes. So they have this big reveal, and in 1 year alone, he paid more than Obama's paid his entire life. The last 15 years, the Obamas paid $6.1 million. He pays $38 million in a year. He pays a higher rate than the Obamas, a higher rate than Bernie Sanders, a higher rate than NBC Comcast, which made the big reveal and made a big deal out of nothing. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is never going to end, is it? They are just at war with them, period.
Well, they better prepare themselves because we're putting in 8 years to help make America great again. We're not just defaulting to 4. The president is going to do exactly what he said he's going to do. I look at these reporters and I watch what Rachel Maddow did, and she should be ashamed of herself. In fact,
they're not. But by the way, didn't you laugh? Come on. My reaction was, I don't think I laughed that was a belly laugh for me. It was like deep. I needed that laugh.
Well, the buildup was so great. I mean, I thought she was going to reveal something so dramatic and so terrible. And when she revealed the 2 pages, I thought, this woman has lost her mind. I couldn't believe it. And then I think she actually showed his Social Security number right on camera.
I didn't see.
Yeah, she did not black out his social when she held up the 2 pages.
I have known the president for many, many years, and he is a man of action. That's how I would describe him, a man of endless energy, extraordinarily courageous, and a man of action. Unfortunately for him, I am really disappointed in Congress and the way they rolled out this health care bill. And here's my logic, Omarosa, and I want to get your take on it. So they had 8 years of telling the American people they're going to repeal it, they're going to replace it. Repeal it, replace it. All right. They got the House in 2010. They got the Senate in 2014. They said, give us the White House and we'll be able to get all this done. They get the White House. President Trump wins, by the way, in spite of some of them. On the Republican side that were no help. I have a much longer memory than he does. And so now he's elected, and you would think like on November 9th they would have started getting ready, building the bill, building consensus. And so they drop a bill that has so much opposition within their own ranks that now the president has to go do their job and build the consensus they should have built for 8 years. That's frustrating to me.
Well, I have to say to you that, yes, the rollout has been a little complex and complicated. But I believe that truly more people will not just have coverage as they had with Obamacare, but they'll have the care that they need. They will actually be able to see the doctors that they need to, and they'll be able to help to heal their bodies, their minds, their soul. That's what this is designed to do. Now, we could have done better with the rollout and explaining the different steps to how we had to repeal and replace, but I don't want you to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's still help in this bill. There's still an opportunity for us to do exactly what he said he was going to do. So I just think if people could just be patient, this president is committed to making sure that everybody doesn't just have health coverage, but they have health care, that they get the care that they need, Sean.
Listen, I agree with all of that. And, I've been putting different ideas on the table, and I'm trying to offer positive solutions. One of them is certainly what the president ran on health care savings accounts. There's this guy in Wichita, and his name is Dr. Josh Humber. And he has this practice, it's called Atlas MD. If you're an adult and you're part of his cooperative, you pay $50 a month for unlimited care. You get $10 a month for any child. Part of unlimited care means you pay like 50 cents for an x-ray. He negotiates directly with pharmaceutical companies, so you get the pharmaceuticals dispensed from your doctor at a 90 to 95% discount. You get, stitches, broken legs, everything but, say, a heart attack, cancer, although he'll get you the cancer chemo drugs at a 95% discount, but now you can get a very inexpensive catastrophic plan, and you've got yourself full, complete health care, 24-hour availability to your doctor, your pharmaceuticals next to nothing, and he has now duplicated this about 1,000 times around the country. And I know that cooperatives were in the Freedom Caucus and the Rand Paul bill, and I don't know if it's in this new bill, or that's like a Donald Trump idea, because he always thinks outside the box.
It does sound very much like Donald Trump, because the president wants to do things that tend to be unorthodox and never done before. But I also think when you describe what this gentleman has done in terms of allowing people to pay the $50 a month and get the care they need, I think that that same spirit is behind what the president is doing. I mean, when people's premiums were going up double, triple, we had some folks in telling their stories about how they were affected by Obamacare, and it just devastated me. And so just know, and I know that your listeners that are at home trying to figure out, well, what's going to happen to me? Just know that we are working so hard every single day, and the president is working every single day to make sure
I've actually been checking in with these different, like, for example, Congressman Mark Meadows of the Freedom Caucus, who's been against the House bill. I asked, well, how has negotiations been? And he said, well, I haven't heard from the House leadership, but I give the president an A++ because he's negotiating with us on a regular basis.
He is.
Yeah, I'm like,
he is working the phones. He's calling folks. We've invited folks over to come and do everything from bowling to sit down to listening sessions to meeting. He's putting in the time. He's committed to making sure folks are all on board. He had 12 members here earlier today, and he was talking to them. They all came in the door with a no, and I believe that they all left supporting it. So he is actually the master negotiator, and he's
You're talking about the conservative study group, I think, met with him earlier today, right?
Right. They came in, and I'm telling you, they came in opposed to the president. When they left, they were all on board, and that's the type of gift that he has in terms of connecting with people and allowing them to see his vision.
Yeah. Let me ask you about what's happening in Flint. I know this is something that you've been paying very close attention to. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, what's happened in Flint, a couple of years back, they decided to switch their water source. And as a result, so many of the residents, in fact, 100% of the residents were exposed to very high levels of lead and all types of contaminants in their water. In fact, many of the residents have been living on bottled water for the last couple of years. And so because of a subsidy, they didn't have to pay their water bills. And just last week, the subsidy ran out. They required that these residents now start paying their water bill, even though when they cut on their faucet, Sean, some of the water still was coming out smelling funny. Some of it was still coming out brown. There are children that still show high levels of lead in their bodies. And, the president was really concerned about this. He went to Michigan, and he says, while I'm here in Detroit, I want to talk to this mayor, and I want to see how we can help. What can we do? So he invited the mayor of Flint down to Detroit. And even in the middle of this insane event, he took a couple of minutes out. He says, I want you to come to the White House. I want you to sit down. I want us to figure it out. In the meantime, I went to work with a team here at the White House to figure out what resources do we have to help these folks, to make sure that they have clean water, they can cut on their water and not have to filter or boil the water. And we found the resources. The EPA is announcing, I believe it's $100 million that they discovered was available through some grants and some allotments, and they're going to be able to get the help that they need. But he made sure he put a team in place to find every available resource so that the little children of Flint would not have to be exposed to lead, these high levels of lead, 3-4 times higher than the average water sources in this country.
It's so disgusting that this has gone on for so long. I remember the line the president used while he was campaigning, and he said, it used to be that the water was clean in Michigan, and we made cars in Michigan. Now it's the other way around. Now the water's dirty in in Flint, and they make cars in Mexico. And both those things he clearly is taken seriously and is trying to get done, which is awesome.
Yeah, he is very serious about that. And on the other hand, you also saw him in Detroit, also trying to build up jobs and bring back the automotive industry. And he met with the CEOs to say, what can we do there? And so every one of the campaign promises that he made, he's delivering on them one by one, whether it's Flint, whether it's jobs, whether it's car industry, whether it's police. You see him working to get this country back on track and to truly make America a better place.
Listen, we've got a lot of cleaning up to do. I think we've really off to a great start. They're going to have to clean up this mess in the House and how they get bills together. That's my criticism of them, and it seems like the president's doing his best to clean up the mess they made, but I'm disappointed with the Republican Party on that. Anyway, Omarosa, you've been great, and getting to know you, by the way, has been amazing. I had a very different view of you before I met you. I mean, you were so tough on The Apprentice. I couldn't believe it. You were tough as nails, and you're like...
Yeah, but you know what? The president doesn't like to be around a whole lot of folks who are just yes people and weak.
We'll never say that about you.
Personalities.
I know.
Can I just say this before we go? I don't know if listeners know that you could be a preacher because of that event we did in Cleveland in the church. And you
remember that with Pastor
preaching.
Scott? Yeah. I said, I'm going to bring it. Here we go. And I couldn't believe the reaction. It was fun. All right, Omarosa, God bless you. Always a pleasure. We'll stay in touch. 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. News Roundup Information Overload is coming up next, and your calls also.
The final hour of the Sean Hannity Show is up next. Hang on for Sean's Conservative Solutions.
All right, we got time here for a few calls. Then, somebody I wanted to interview, fascinating woman, Camille Paglia. I know it's often said Paglia. It's not. It's Paglia. And she's going to join us at the top of the next hour. And she's just a very interesting, deep, free thinker, prolific writer, amazing human being. And I've followed her, actually, for years. And I'm looking forward to introducing her to you as she talks about sex and gender and a lot of other issues, especially about the feminization of society, especially for men. It's pretty interesting stuff. All right, let's get to our phones as we say hi to Bill is in Minnesota. Bill, hi, how are you? Glad you called.
I'm doing fine, Mr. Hannity. How are you doing this Patrick's Day?
Oh, laddie, we're doing pretty good. God bless you. Back for the old land. What's going on?
Well, I wanted to call and mention I've heard all about this Trump business with the tax returns, and nobody complained about President Bill Clinton's tax returns going back. If you go back to 1992 and you look at his effective tax rate on that tax return, he paid a little over 21% in federal income tax.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that same year, I was basically in the median income group, and my effective federal income tax rate was 18%.
Right.
So that means that Bill Clinton paid about 3% more in taxes than I did. And the tax structure is supposed to be set up where the rich pay more. Is that what I'm supposed to understand, right?
Well, I mean, in reality, in truth, the bottom 50% of wage earners pay no federal income tax. The top 10% pays 78% of the bill.
Right.
So the top 1%, I think, pays 38% of the bill.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you already have redistribution. The more you make, the more you obviously are going to pay. But, I mean, the tax, if you look at the percentage of tax that Trump paid in this 1 year, 2005, he paid a higher rate than Obama did. He, in 1 year, paid more than Obama's paid his entire adult life by a long shot.
Exactly.
And, I mean, by the way, and the fact that he sold a property and made a profit to a Russian oligarch, whose business is this? Who cares? Good for him. I mean, I've sold property and lost money. I've sold property and made money. It's not fun when you lose a lot of money on property, but that's the risk of buying property. There's a risk associated with starting a business. Life is full of risks. In a free society, I guess you either have a stomach for it or you don't. He's a risk taker. But I don't know. It's all this narrative. They want to make this rich versus poor, old versus young, black versus white. It's just sad, the level of division that goes on for the careers of politicians. All right, news roundup, information overload. Camille Paglia, when we get back, straight ahead.
I stand here representing the feminist majority, and this is what feminism looks like. I'm Allie Spill, the president of the Feminist Majority, and I'm also on the board as the co-chair of the National Organization for Women, and we are standing together. Terry?
I'm Terry O'Neill. I'm the president of the National Organization for Women.
And we're both wearing red, in case you haven't noticed it, because we are standing strong with the marchers. This is a day without women. That's we have closed school districts. We have closed schools. We're celebrating International Women's Day as the only way we can. We are resisting. And we will be standing at 3. There's so many events going on nationwide. At 3 o'clock, join the resistance at the Department of Labor for women workers, because we will not tolerate these outrageous fight against raising the minimum wage, $15 for women, and include tip workers too.
And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything, you. You. But this is the hallmark of revolution. Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I am outraged. Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
I am a nasty woman. I'm nasty, like my blood stains on my bed sheets. We don't actually choose if and when to have our periods. Believe me, if we could, some of us would. We don't like throwing away our favorite pairs of underpants. Tell me, why are tampons and pads still taxed when Viagra and Rogaine are not? Is your erection really more than protecting the sacred, messy part of my womanhood? Is the blood stain on my jeans more embarrassing than the thinning of your hair?
All right, there you. It's so hard to listen to, but then I laugh at the same time. I can't help it. Anyway, glad you're with us. Final hour here on a Friday. News Roundup, Information Overload Hour. I'm really honored to have this next guest. I've been fascinated with her, and I've got to credit the Drudge Report for introducing me to, I've always said Camille Paglia. It's Camille Paglia is the actual pronunciation of this. And her life, her background, her experience, she's been an iconoclast her entire life. She's got a brand new book, Free Women, Free Men, Sex, Gender, Feminism. And one of the more interesting people, and I got to tell you, one of the great writers that I have seen in all the years I've been reading columns of people. And it's a great honor, Camille, to have you on the program. How are you?
Oh, it's great to be here, Sean. Thank you so much.
I read in your recent interview you like to drink Corona during interviews. Are you drinking a Corona?
Not right now, but I love beer. Okay, in fact, that's one of the pieces in the book where I'm demanding an end to the age 21 law.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was a bartender, Camille, at 17, getting in a lot of trouble at that point in my life.
Yeah.
You know, before we get to what you just heard, why don't you just give an overview of what you're saying in this book?
Okay, well, I was inspired by first-wave feminism when I was simply an adolescent, in the early 1960s. I was inspired by Amelia Earhart, by Katharine Hepburn, who just after women had won the right to vote in 1920. And those women never bashed men. They admired men. All they asked for was equality of opportunity for women to show that they could do as good as men had done all these thousands of years, okay? So, but second-wave feminism, which came after I was already a feminist, okay, in the late 1960s, got really saturated with anti-male rhetoric, and I think it comes from a lot of these slightly unstable women who are attracted to movements. So I call myself a feminist, absolutely, but I am an equity feminist, okay, not one of these feminists who is always thinking men are the devils of the universe. That is so twisted.
That is such a great, I don't hear this often. There's a woman, a guest we have on often. She's with the Federalist, D.C. McAllister, And you are right up. You guys are totally on the same wavelength here. You're right. It's sort of like there has grown this hatred for men, and I don't want to say the feminization of men in society, but it's sort of kind of happening. I mean, like when I was a kid, Camille, we used to fight every day. We played hockey. We threw our gloves off like the Philadelphia Flyers and the Broad Street Bullies, and we'd brawl. And then when we were done brawling, we put a little bit of ice on our lip, and we'd go fight again, and we'd go play more hockey. We didn't go run into everybody's mother or run to the principal or run to the teacher just because you had a normal childhood experience, and part of that is you fight. And I had to warn my son his entire life in school. Now, whatever you do, don't fight. Only if you're hit can you hit back. I mean, it's, give him 100 different rules, and it's like they want to throw you out of school and give you sensitivity training if you get in a normal experience.
Exactly. The public schools have become this cesspool, banality, grinding down men into this feminized version of what they seem to think, men should be. The reason my book is called Free Women, Free Men, is that men have every right to define themselves, to find their own identity, to pursue their own tastes and passions, all right? And we have to stop this. All the institutions now of society, right? whether it's the colleges or the social welfare agencies, or the public schools, are defining masculinity as inherently toxic. Okay, this is the biggest neurosis. Okay, that's being imposed on young people. Everyone is in psychological chaos. We've got to stop this. All right, men have a right. Okay, to have their own world, their own worldview. Okay, they do not have to cut themselves down to suit feminist commissars.
I knew I would enjoy interviewing you. I really did. By the way, one time you took a shot at me, and I was devastated. Oh. And by the way, nobody gets to me ever. You can write anything, say anything about me. I don't give a flying rip what any of these people say. I was like, I thought she would have liked me. That's what I said to myself.
Sean, I have to say, all these years, and I listen to talk radio a lot. Okay, I'm in my car a lot, and so on. I have to say that the one time I really disagreed with you was your take on the Trayvon Martin case. I have to say that was probably the only time I can think of where I thought, oh no, I wish I could talk to you and try to maybe slightly soften your rhetoric about it. But you were being a man, I guess.
Maybe that was it. Maybe there was that testosterone in me.
Yeah.
Remember, but did the one eyewitness that appeared very late in that trial that said identified Trayvon ground and pound, and the voice was identified screaming as George Zimmerman, did that change your mind at all?
No, I felt that Zimmerman had absolutely no business deputizing himself. Okay, he had been told to stand back, and he put himself into it. And I do think he should have been charged with manslaughter from the start. But let's not get into that. Okay, let's
no, that's fine. I want to ask you about this. In this last interview that you did, I really was fascinated about your comments about the president. You said, quote, "I felt the Trump victory coming for a long time."
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, absolutely.
Tell me why.
Oh, I just felt I have an instinct. I do not live in New York. Okay, I work in Philadelphia, but I don't even live in Philadelphia. I live in the suburbs. I try to stay close to the people. I try to listen and be, and feel I'm part of the country at large, not in the bubble of Manhattan, Washington, Los Angeles, and so on. Right? And here's the point: I'm a Democrat. I supported Bernie Sanders. I voted for Jill Stein, etc. Right? But the reason Trump was elected was that my party, the Democratic Party, right, would not deal with very serious problems in this country, right? And the voters saw no solutions being offered by my party, and therefore voted for Trump, who is not a classic Republican, not at all. He's an outsider. Therefore, what his victory represents is a smashing of the party establishment in this country. He smashed the GOP establishment, and he has smashed the Democratic establishment. All right, and now let's hope he can govern. I hope that he can, make strides in job creation and reduce the size of the federal bureaucracy, because one of the themes of my book, okay, is the atrocious corruption of the bureaucracy on college campuses. Right? It's the administrators who are responsible for the PC, Stalinism, on campus. Right? The faculty has been eunuchized. The faculty has been silent. They've been marginalized. This is why there's no education going on our campuses. All right? Bureaucracy is our enemy. Okay, whether it's in Washington or on the college campus.
All right, Camille, if you can stay with us. Camille Polya is with us, and her brand new book, we'll put it up on Hannity.com, is Free Women, Free Men, Sex, Gender, Feminism. I'm going to ask you about these lunatics, those women marches going on with their vagina hats, and we'll get into that and so much more. All right, let's get to some busy calls. You've been very, very patient here today, as usual, and, oh, look at this. We've got the two twins of Friddle and Fraddle, Crystal and Natalie, part of the original Let Not Your Heart Be Troubled Twitter Army Brigade. And, well, I guess we could say Friddle Fraddle actually is a talk show host now out in Vegas. And Friddle Fraddle, I guess, is working her way through law school. Is that what you're doing?
Something like that. Something like that. Hey, happy Sean Patrick's Day to you, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, is this what the purpose of the call is, to say happy St. Patrick's Day? Now, every CPAC, usually see you guys. I only got to see one of you last year. What happened to the team, the duo?
Well, see, what happened is some of us worked for a living, and I didn't have...
Welcome to the real world, finally. See? I bet you look at your paycheck and your pay stub, and you say, wait, I pay that much in taxes?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm very much looking forward to when President Trump deals with our tax situation. And can I just say, this isn't why we called, but Sean, we had a lot of conversations about Trump as a candidate prior to the election. And
you were pretty much a never Trumper and harassing me all the time on Twitter.
I was never a never, but I had concerns, and I think some of them were, in fact, legitimate. But I have to say, I think he has done a phenomenal job thus far, and I think it's time for people who were like me, well, it's past time. Just give the man a chance, admit he's doing a good job, and let's work together and get some progress accomplished for our country.
Well,
here.
I think you could say, Hannity, you were right again. I mean, that would
Hannity,
probably
you were
be
right
even the
again.
more.
I'm glad that you were. I'm so glad that you were right.
Natalie, why are you so quiet? I think you might have gotten too deep into the secret society where grown men dance around fires. Whatever that place is that you work in the summer.
Yeah, no comment on that. But if you think that CPAC was a vacation, John, I worked the whole time. I worked the whole CPAC conference. So, yeah.
All right. Is there a real purpose for this call, or am I saying goodbye?
There is.
What is it?
There is. So basically, I woke up this morning, and I thought that I was going to see myself on CNN because last night I showed a friend of mine, I have a Ruger LC9, and I showed it to them, and I thought that this was going to be breaking news, but it wasn't. So,
yes. Don't whatever you do, don't show anything to a friend ever. It's going to be the headline will be a massive. Oh, that's not what happened. It's just look. This is the environment we live in, and listen, I take a lot of shots at a lot of different people, especially my fellow comrades in the media. They're the comrades, not me. And, I guess this is their way. They think they're punching back. But, facts are very interesting things. And at the end of the day, there's nothing here and nothing was there. Nothing ever was there. And they make a sensational headline. They get their clicks and they move on. I mean, this is now the new trend I see. My name gets used for clicks. Hannity, something outrageous, blah. Not true, but Hannity, something outrageous, blah. Then, they get all the web traffic they want. And, I guess really in a lot of ways it's a compliment. But on the issue of firearm safety, it's been a passion of mine. And I do things that nobody ever does in terms of safety. And I'm just going to keep it all to myself right now. But we'll talk about it another day. But that's pretty funny.
What would happen if we imagine what would happen if we posted your March Madness bracket.
Oh,
you go ahead, post it. You can. You wanted my bracket, and I sent it to you. I'll post it on Hannity.
Hey, John, you're doing well. I have to say, normally I don't admit when you're right, but Middle Tennessee was a good pick, and I was laughing at that one behind your back.
Yeah, well, I made a pretty good pick. You could actually thank my 18-year-old son who helped me with my bracket.
Well, we knew somebody.
I figured you had to have help.
Yeah. No, I mean, we talked about each pick individually, and it was my bracket, but I talked to him about it. That's nothing bad about that. All right, girls, got to run. You all have a great day, great weekend. Good to talk to you all. Let's get to our busy phones. Let's head to Ohio. Rick in Ohio, what's going on?
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good, sir. What's happening with you?
Just thinking about the health care thing with Ryan. I know he said he's been working on it for 20 years. That's back in Clinton days. I'm like, where's this I don't really care. I don't know if I trust the man or not at all, and I think Trump's smart enough not to. I know they're going to make some changes, they said, to improve it, but I am not a happy camper with Ryan. I think he's like a Boehner wannabe. I don't know. But I wouldn't trust him myself. And
there's nobody I know that. Listen, I'm trying to be constructive here in my criticisms of them. You know, it's very hard for those of us that have been hearing these politicians for 8 years to see a rollout so disastrous like this. And, you know, I guess if I hear the sausage analogy, if you like sausage, don't ever get it, watch it being made. All right, I get it. But the problem is so much of this could have been done behind closed doors. They had so much time to build a consensus bill. And if they're going to make everything this hard and arduous and difficult, and they're going to drag the president into it, and now he's got to spend all his time talking to every congressman, every senator, everybody that has any criticisms of a bill, it just is not efficient to me. And it's typical government, you know, crap, to be honest. I'm way beyond disappointed. Now, with that said, failure is not an option here. They cannot take the first major piece of legislation as proposed by the president and fail. So if it means it's going to be another month or two of fighting, I'll put up with the other month or two of fighting as long as they get it right. You know, we've had these answers for a long time. I've been trying to get Washingtonians to call Dr. Umber. Who calls him? The Mississippi governor, and he loves the guy, and he's bringing him into Mississippi. Newt Gingrich calls him. Well, Newt Gingrich isn't the speaker anymore. It's frustrating. You know, there are answers. These cooperatives that I keep talking about, that's a real, honest to good, practical answer for health care for every American, that we can duplicate this incredible model. And health care savings accounts, especially for younger people. You know, they're going to go most of their adult life only needing checkups. Maybe they get a broken bone or need stitches. Maybe they have a car accident, but it's not too bad. They don't need health care until they start getting older. I mean, 95% of health care bills are spent on the very old in the country. So the failure here is not an option. I've given all of my ideas that I possibly can, trying to be productive. And when you're dealing with bureaucrats and you're dealing with Washington, they need to act more like the president. You know, it's like in this case, the cart's before the horse. They wrote the contract before they ever made the deal points. They should have made all the deal points with all the different factions and all the different groups, dealing with all the Senate rules and all of the obstacles that they complain that they have to deal with. But they knew about that from the beginning. And they had 8 years to get this thing right, and they were not prepared. There's no other explanation for this. And so now the president has